This is the lid and handles that I've taken off the main piece. All of this is enameled. You see it? And those white pieces are actually white. It's not where it's cracked out. The top is smashed in, which is actually going to be the easiest part. I always mark everything where it goes. So here's my mark with the Sharpie. That one goes there, that one goes there. I can't get any of my tools in here as of now, but I haven't tried this yet. But alternative is to remove this, make it push it out. And this kind of thing pushes out pretty easily. It's gold plated, probably copper, because the inside of this is copper. And as you know, when you enamel, you usually use copper to enamel on. But they've gold plated this, so you're kind of confused, and it's very heavy. They've made an extra lip, as you can see. I took pictures of how I made my tool, and I went through a whole session of what should I use. I ended up using wood, oak. It's hard, but it also gives. I was going to use Delrin, hard plastic, but then I realized that that would probably crack the enamel when I started rounding the piece. So what I do is I measure from one side to the other, and I figure out, okay, that's the diameter of that side, and that's, you know, so I want everything on the inside to be the same diameter. So I find the worst place, which is here. Looks kind of flat. See how it's flattened? That's where it fell onto the ground from a high stand. I'm told. I haven't seen yet where it goes in the house, but it's a high stand. And what I did was I used the rim, because it's the strongest piece of metal in the whole piece, as my pushing part area. But I had to drill my holes at an angle so that my wood sits exactly flush to the inside. There's, you know, because if it were straight, and because it's a cylinder, that part, when you started pushing, would push out the enamel, and that would crack it. So you've got to make sure when you drill your holes, when you're pushing out something with enamel on it, you have everything exactly touching the surface. And your strongest points, because this is a lip, I cut this part out with my lathe so it fits exact in there, and then it also fits exactly against this and that part. And the other part, drilling, is easy. You can do it with I use a milling machine just because I have a milling machine, and it makes drilling holes a lot easier. But you can use a drill press, same, and you have to set up both pieces exactly the same. What I did was I used Loctite on one side. You see the red goop? That glued it in. And I did try pushing this out by hand, but it was, I started hearing cracking. You want to do this in a place where it's really quiet, so that when you're pushing and you start hearing cracking, stop, because, well, you know why, because the enamel's breaking. And what I did, I used a little tiny little, well, it depends, I guess, if the piece were much bigger, but I'm using a small wrench, and I'm only going with the small pressure of my thumb, and I'm only pushing slightly. Now I'll just push. That's how slow I'm going. I'm not giving it brute force. I'm listening, and I'm pushing very slowly, and I stop in between to give the metal time to get, well, I call it relaxed, but get used to being pushed back into place. We're lucky because the metal usually has a memory of where it was, especially if it's enameled. This is a hard project. I wouldn't recommend it for the beginner because if you break the enamel, you're going to have to you're going to have to get it re-enameled or take it to a very good restoration person for enamel, and that's very expensive. So the first thing I did was I took off the handles, as you can see, and I marked everything 1 and 2, so which one goes where and what screw goes where. So you can keep track of all that, because a lot of times the old pieces aren't drilled perfectly in the centers. See how that's off to the, down to, say, if you're telling time, down to 7 on the clock. Okay, I'm going to stop this video, but at least you have an idea of what I've done, and I will put pictures of how I made my tool. But I want to emphasize that when you're making your turns, don't go very slow, be in a quiet place and listen for cracking. As soon as you hear cracking, stop, because that means you're pushing it too fast.